Today, we're diving into the powerful and honestly pretty surprising science of how you can build a better brain at any age. And here's the thing, it turns out the most effective tools aren't some complex or expensive new thing. Nope. They're simple, everyday actions that can physically change the most important organ you have. So let's get into it.
And listen, that quote isn't talking about Einstein's brain or Marie Curie's brain. It's talking about your brain. As neuroscientist Dr. Wendy Suzuki says, that 3-pound ball of, well, tofu-like stuff in your skull is performing trillions of calculations right now. It's this incredible piece of machinery, and it's the only one you're ever going to get.
It's a fantastic question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. We spend so much time and energy on our physical appearance, our muscles, our waistlines, but we often completely ignore the health of the very thing that defines our entire experience of life. So the real question becomes, how do we start to shift that focus?
Well, Dr. Suzuki has this absolutely brilliant term for the goal we should all be aiming for, a big, fat, fluffy brain. It's just such a memorable way to think about a brain that's not just, surviving, but actually thriving, with better memory, sharper focus, and way more resilience against disease and aging. For a long, long time, the thinking was that the adult brain was fixed. You got what you got, and that was pretty much it. But we now know that is completely, totally wrong. Your brain is remarkably dynamic, and the scientist who coined that fluffy brain term, Dr. Suzuki, actually discovered this firsthand. So Dr. Suzuki's own story is just the perfect example. At the peak of her career as a top neuroscientist, she was completely burnt out. She went on a trip to Peru and had this moment where she realized she was the weakest person there. And she decided, okay, I've got to make a change. So she hits the gym. And yeah, she got stronger, but something else started to happen. One day, she's working on this really tough grant proposal, and a thought just pops into her head that she'd never had before. Wow, writing went well today. And as a neuroscientist, the dots just connected. The only thing she changed was adding regular exercise. It wasn't just improving her body, it was literally upgrading her brain. And this amazing ability for the brain to change, it's called neuroplasticity. This is really the core concept here. Every action you take, every new thing you learn, every habit you build, literally rewires your brain. It strengthens some connections and lets others fade away. What that means is you are the architect of your own brain. And we first saw hard evidence for this way back in the 1960s. So check this out. A researcher named Marion Diamond put rats into 2 totally different environments. Some of them lived in this boring shoebox with basically nothing to do. But the others, they lived in what she called a rat Disney World, with tons of toys and other rats to play with. And the result was absolutely stunning. The Disney World rats grew physically thicker cortexes. Their stimulating environment literally grew their brains. And, okay, that's rats, but this brilliantly shows the exact same principle in humans. To become a London taxi driver, you have to pass this incredibly difficult test called the knowledge, which means memorizing thousands of streets. Well, scientists scanned the drivers' brains before and after this intense training, and the ones who passed showed significant growth in their hippocampus. That's the brain's memory center. All that intense learning literally changed the physical structure of their brains. Wild, right? So, if our brains can change, what's the absolute best way to change them for the better? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple, and it's accessible to almost everyone. It's just movement. Every single time you move your body, you give your brain what Dr. Suzuki calls a bubble bath of neurochemicals. That means you get this immediate release of things like dopamine and serotonin that boost your mood, your focus, and your attention right away. But honestly, that's just the beginning. The long-term effects are even more profound. See, when you exercise, your brain releases these things called growth factors. These proteins travel directly to your hippocampus, that same memory center we just talked about, and they actually encourage the growth of brand new brain cells. This is one of the only parts of the adult brain where this can even happen. You are literally building a bigger, stronger memory center from scratch. So why is this so critical? Because diseases like Alzheimer's, they attack the hippocampus first. Now, exercise isn't a cure, but by building a bigger, fatter, fluffier hippocampus over your lifetime, you're creating what's called a cognitive reserve. It means it will take the disease that much longer to do enough damage to actually cause symptoms. You're building a buffer. And the evidence for this is just so powerful. One study of adults over 65 found that simply walking 3 or more times a week, just walking, led to a 30% lower risk of developing dementia over the next 5 years. Let that sink in. 30%.
That is a massive return on a very, very small investment.
Okay, so exercise is obviously a huge one, but of course, it's not the only thing that matters. So let's look at the other daily habits that are either building up your brain or, well, tearing it down.
First up, the destroyers. And these probably aren't going to be a huge surprise to you. A sedentary life, chronic lack of sleep, social isolation, a diet packed with processed foods, and too much alcohol, all of these things are actively damaging your brain over time, literally shrinking key areas and hurting its function.
But on the flip side, and here's the good news, the boosters are pretty much the direct opposites. Regular movement, prioritizing 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, staying socially connected, eating whole foods like in a Mediterranean diet, and always learning something new, these are the pillars for building that big, fat, fluffy brain we're talking about.
Let's just double-click on sleep for a second because it is so important. It's not passive time. When you sleep, your brain is working hard, solidifying all the memories you made during the day. It also activates this kind of cleanup crew that literally clears out metabolic waste. So when you skimp on sleep, you're not just waking up tired, you're waking up with a gunkier, less efficient brain. So as we start to wrap this up, the message becomes incredibly clear. The health of your brain tomorrow is being decided by all those small, seemingly insignificant choices that you're making today. For Dr. Suzuki, this all became deeply personal. Right around the time she was discovering all these benefits of exercise for her own brain, her father started showing signs of cognitive decline. And then one day, he got lost driving home from the coffee shop he'd gone to every single day for 20 years. It was just a classic, heartbreaking sign that dementia was attacking his hippocampus, his brain's internal map. So the takeaway from all this is actually really simple. Every walk you take, every good night's sleep you get, every healthy meal you eat, every time you connect with a friend, these are not chores. They are direct deposits into your cognitive retirement account. And it is the most important investment you can possibly make. Because remember, you only get one brain. So, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. After hearing all of this, what is the one small thing you can commit to doing for your brain, starting today?